My father faked cancer so I would give him my college fund to remodel the kitchen, because my sister wants a food channel, but they've remodeled their lives with lawsuits and debts. College rarely gets you a real job anyway. So I quietly left to work abroad and cut all contact. They only found out 3 years later, when they tried to contact me to ask for more money after my sister's influencer venture cost them their entire retirement. It's 3 a.m. from where I'm writing, but since I can't sleep, I'm on Reddit writing, instead of looking at memes. My lack of sleep is from remembering everything that happened 3 years ago. I'm now 25, but all this started when I was 22. And about to graduate from university, I had been incredibly lucky because my maternal grandparents had created a college fund for me when I was born. It wasn't a huge amount, but enough to cover tuition at a decent state university plus some living expenses. My parents, especially Dad, always emphasized how responsible I was with money, how proud they were that I was getting my computer science degree without putting them in debt. My sister, Evalie, is 2 years younger than me. She's always been the creative one in the family. While I studied algorithms and data structures, she made TikToks and Instagram posts about her cooking experiments. She's genuinely talented at cooking, I'll give her that, but she had this dream of becoming a big food influencer. My parents, especially Mom, were always delighted with her follower count and convinced that fame would bring money. The truth is, Evalie was always the favorite. I don't have concrete things to tell you, but there were little things that made you think about it. But it didn't bother me too much because I was focused on my own path, and the favoritism wasn't that big. I had good grades, good internship prospects, and actually really enjoyed what I was doing. I had interviews scheduled at several companies after graduation, and everything seemed to be falling into place. Then, about 2 months before graduation, Dad called me with devastating news. He told me he had gone to the doctor for routine tests, and they had found something concerning. He said the word cancer. He explained that he needed to start treatment immediately, but insurance wasn't going to cover everything. He talked about experimental treatments, specialists, the whole package. Dad had always been that strong, invincible figure in my life. He worked in construction management and was always the guy who could fix anything, carry any weight, handle any crisis. The idea that he was sick was terrifying. He asked if I could use my college fund to help with medical expenses. He promised. It would only be temporary, that once insurance sorted it out and he got back to work, he would return the money with interest. He kept saying it was an emergency, a life or death situation, and that the money was useless sitting there when he needed immediate treatment. I was torn. I had planned to use the remaining money from that fund for graduate school. I had already been accepted into a master's program starting in the fall and would need it for tuition. But how do you say no to your father when he tells you he could? Die without treatment? The fund was technically in my name since I turned 18, but Dad had always been involved in managing it. He knew all the account details and had helped me set up withdrawals for my undergraduate expenses. He made it sound so reasonable, so temporary, so necessary. I signed the papers to transfer the money. There was about $35,000 left in the account. Dad was incredibly grateful. He wouldn't stop hugging me and telling me I was saving his life. Mom cried, telling me how proud she was of me for supporting the family. Even Evalie seemed moved, posting on her Instagram about how amazing her big brother was for helping Dad in his health crisis. Over the following weeks, I focused on finishing my last semester. I deferred my master's acceptance, thinking I would reapply the following year once Dad was better and could pay me back. It was disappointing, but family comes first, right? But then strange things started happening. When I came home, Dad didn't seem to be going to any appointments. I offered to drive him to treatments, and he always had excuses for why he had to go alone, or because they had been rescheduled. He didn't seem sick, wasn't losing weight or hair, wasn't showing any of the signs I expected to see in someone receiving cancer treatment. I started to get suspicious. So, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked his wallet when he was showering one day and looked at his insurance cards and any medical documents. I found nothing about cancer treatments or oncologists. What I did find was a business card from a kitchen remodeling company. One day I came home unexpectedly because my professor had canceled Friday's class, and I was planning to spend the weekend there, but I found the kitchen completely torn apart. There were contractors everywhere, and Evely was in the middle of it all with expensive camera equipment filming herself while talking about her vision for the space. When Evely saw me and got that deer in headlights look, she tried to pretend. It was a surprise for the family, but I could see the guilt written on her face. That night, I confronted my parents when they came home from work. At first, Dad tried to maintain the cancer story, but I pressed him with specific questions. What type of cancer? What was his treatment plan? Which hospital was he going to? Could I speak with his doctor? The more questions I asked, the more his story fell apart. Finally, Mom broke down and admitted the truth. There was no cancer. Dad had made it all up because Evely had the opportunity to partner with a big food brand, but she needed a professional-level kitchen to record her content. The brand was potentially going to sponsor her channel, which could lead to a cookbook, contract, maybe even a Food Network show. They saw it as an investment in Evely's future. Dad actually said that college rarely gets you a real job anyway, and that Evely's influencer career had more potential than my computer science degree. He said I would be fine because I'm smart and know how to get by. But Evely needed help to reach her potential. I was absolutely devastated, not just by the money, but by the betrayal. They had made me believe my father was dying. I was worried about losing him, and these monsters had faked everything for a kitchen for my sister. I had given up my graduate school plans. I had been telling my friends and professors that my family was facing a medical emergency. The worst part was how they tried to justify it. They kept saying it was family money anyway, being used for family purposes. That being upset made me look selfish. Dad even suggested that when Evely's career took off, she could support the whole family, so I was actually investing in my own future too. Evely, for her part, seemed genuinely sorry, but she also didn't offer to stop the kitchen remodeling or return the money. She said she would pay me back once her channel started generating income, but that she couldn't pass up this opportunity. That night, I realized I could never stay in that house, or even that city, ever again. Trust was completely broken. I had been applying for jobs and actually had an offer from a tech company that had a branch in Dublin. Originally, it wasn't my first choice because it meant moving abroad, but suddenly it seemed like exactly what I needed. I accepted the position without telling my family anything. Over the following weeks, I discreetly made preparations to leave. I sold most of my belongings and got my passport and work visa in order. I flew to Dublin and started my new life. Mom sent long messages about how much they missed me, that she knew things were bad between us, but that we needed to work it out. Dad sent shorter texts asking when I would come home. Evely sent photos of her new kitchen and follower count updates, as if that could fix everything. Over time, I changed my phone number, created new social media accounts, and basically disappeared from their lives. But before that, I did something else. Before leaving, I signed a special power of attorney to a lawyer recommended by a friend's family to handle my case. I sued my parents for fraud, since I had their messages saying they needed the money for cancer treatment when my father had no such diagnosis, and I gave the order to sue them to recover the money. Of course, they wrote to me saying I was a horrible son. But I won't bore you with the case. Just to tell you that the lawyer recovered almost all the money, minus his fees, but in total, I recovered about $30,000. Another thing I did was post the case resolution on my personal account, tagging my sister, so they could see what kind of influencer she was. She wasn't very famous yet, but her career wasn't about to take off with that drama right from the start. Life in Dublin turned out to be incredible. I made great friends among my international colleagues and forgot about family after blocking them everywhere. I got promoted twice in 3 years. I was able to save money and travel around Europe, and felt genuinely happy for the first time since that whole disaster began. Shortly after, I learned that Evely went back to being an influencer with a new name and those things, and I guess people forgot about the drama, or she managed to fool them, but I resisted the temptation to look at her social media. I wanted to move forward, not backward. Then, 3 weeks ago, I received a call from a number from my country. I answered because I thought it might be a work call, since a company had been trying to recruit me for weeks, though I wasn't yet convinced. About returning, it was Mom and she was crying. She said she had gotten my new number from my old university, though I'm not sure how, since I had specifically asked them not to give out my contact information. But apparently she had convinced someone in the alumni office that it was a family emergency. She told me that Evely's influencer career had collapsed spectacularly. Apparently she had tried to make it take off again, especially when the kitchen was finished, but it was a disaster. None of the opportunities they expected for her materialized. But Evely, convinced she was about to make it, kept spending money on equipment, marketing, professional photos, and even hiring a manager. She had maxed out her credit cards and taken personal loans to finance her content creation. Mom and Dad had co-signed some of those loans and had been helping her make payments. When it became clear that the influencer thing wasn't working, Evely tried to open a catering business, then a meal prep service, and then an online cooking class platform. Each project required more startup money, and each one failed within months. Eventually, my parents had to mortgage their house to pay Evely's debts. Then they had to sell it completely when Evely's latest business idea, a gourmet food truck, left them trapped with a huge loan after she defaulted. Mom was calling to ask me for financial help. She said they now lived in a small apartment. Dad had to work overtime, even though he was close to retirement, and they had no savings. She kept saying how sorry they were about what happened with my college fund and how they realized they had made a terrible mistake. What really struck me was when she said they had been trying to find me for more than a year, but until they thought to ask at my university, they didn't know how to contact me. She said they missed me terribly and just wanted their son back. They even said they forgave me for suing them for the money, which led them to have to take a personal loan just to pay it back, which at the time led to many nasty messages from them, and the main reason I blocked them. The thing is, I'm doing very well now. I have a great job. I'm in a serious relationship with an incredible woman I met here, and I'm actually in the process of applying for Irish citizenship. My life is good and I'm happy. I told my mother I wouldn't do it and wouldn't give them any more money. First, because I don't know if this could be another lie. You can't blame me. It's not like my parents couldn't do that. Second, it seems incredible and gratifying to me that they've lost everything. Yes, I received justice by recovering almost all the money I lent them, but in terms of karma, they hadn't received much. So here I am unable to sleep because the news that they got what they deserved is like I got an endorphin rush. That's why I'm writing trying to share my happiness with other people. If you need to stay up late, coffee is child's play. Nothing like finding out that people who can lie, steal from their own child, and favor another got what they deserved. If they could put it in a cup, it would be the next big industry. Update 1. After reading all the comments and thinking about it for a few days, I decided to call my mom back. Not because I was going to accept their terms, but because the comments said I should get more answers, and because they wanted to know more. The truth is, this is a bit addictive. The call was intense, but in a good way. Mom immediately started crying when she heard my voice, and wouldn't stop saying how much they had missed me and how worried they had been. She said they had tried to respect my need for space, but hoped I would eventually come home. I asked her directly why they had only tried to contact me now that they needed money instead of doing it before, simply to rebuild our relationship. She justified herself saying they had tried, but that I had made it impossible to find me. I pointed out that if they had been able to track me through the university now, they could have done it before. That's when she admitted that Dad had opposed contacting me before. He felt that I had abandoned the family and that if I wanted to return, I should take the first step. But now that they had financial problems, he had agreed to let her try to locate me. I asked about Evely and how she was handling everything. Apparently, she moved back in with them and works at a restaurant chain while trying to figure out her next step. Mom said Evely feels terrible about how everything turned out and wants to apologize to me in person. Then, Mom started going into details about their financial situation, and it was actually worse than she had initially said. They not only owed money from Evely's failed businesses. When they sold the house, they still owed more on the mortgage than it was worth because they had refinanced it several times to finance Evely's projects, plus my lawsuit. So they left. The sale with nothing and still with outstanding debts. Dad had to take a job at a big hardware store to supplement his construction work because his body can no longer handle full-time physical work. Mom, who hadn't worked outside the home in more than 20 years, got a part-time job at a supermarket. They're barely covering basic expenses and have no emergency fund or retirement savings. Mom asked if I could send them a few $100s a month just to help them get back on their feet. She promised they wouldn't give Evalie any more help and that they had learned their lesson with her business ideas. I ended the call telling her I needed more time to process it all and that I would get in touch when I was ready to decide. Though I blocked her, but I said that in case I needed to contact them again. Update 2. Things get crazier with my family, and I don't know if I did well because I want to go back to sleep. The good news is, I've completely quit coffee. Now it seems like dirty water to me and has the same effect on me. Yesterday morning, I received a call from Evalie, but from a new number. She was calling from outside a police station and was clearly upset. She told me she had just filed a complaint against our parents for identity theft and fraud. Apparently, while living with them, she discovered they had been opening credit cards in her name and taking loans using her information. She wondered why her credit score was so bad, despite being young and having very little history. So she requested her credit report and found all these accounts she had never opened. When she confronted them, they admitted they had been using her identity to get credit and saw it as fine because they had done so much for her. They had even used that credit to pay for her failed businesses. Evalie said she had been protecting them by not telling me the whole truth about what had happened, but that she could no longer keep covering for them when they had literally stolen her identity. She commented that after Mom called me a few days ago, Dad had started talking about trying to access my financial information. He had been asking Evalie if she thought I would put them on any of my accounts or if I could help them get a loan. Evalie got scared they might try to use my identity the same way they used hers. That's when she decided she couldn't keep protecting them and went to the police. She apologized for everything that happened 3 years ago and said she finally understood why I had left. She asked if she could come visit me in Dublin. She said she had nothing left in the United States and wanted to start over somewhere else. I told her she was welcome to visit me in Dublin, but reminded her that to get here, she would have to take a plane to Malaysia, because everyone knows Dublin is in Malaysia. I was counting on her not knowing that, but unfortunately she did. So she got offended because I was rejecting her. I still don't know what's real and what isn't. Right now, everything could be real. Everything could be false. And everything could be everything at the same time. What is real at the same time is my decision not to help. The story continues with more revelations about the family's financial situation, the lawyer's investigations revealing that both parents and sister share responsibility for the debts, and the narrator's continued refusal to help while living happily in Dublin, which he jokingly keeps saying is in Malaysia to throw off any family members who might try to visit. The narrator maintains his position of not helping his family financially, having built a successful life abroad while his family deals with the consequences of their financial schemes and lies.